Welcome to the Fearfully and Wonderfully Me podcast, a podcast designed to help you increase your influence, develop your leadership, and maximize your results.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode. We are talking all about confidence today. And this is one of the things I like to talk about because number one, confidence is the foundation, right, on which we build our influence. Norman Vincent Peale said, "Believe in yourself, have faith in your abilities. Without a humble but reasonable confidence in your own powers, you cannot be successful or happy." Because confidence is the foundation. And if the foundation of anything is weak, the structure will collapse under stress. And it's really critical that we have that self confidence in ourselves and our ability because that inspires confidence in other people to follow us. So critical there. And there are really two types of confidence. We don't think about this. There is situational confidence and there is self confidence. And a lot of times we just kind of use the term self confidence, but we don't really think about the different types of confidence. And so I like to break that down. They're really two basic ones. Self confidence, true self confidence, is conviction of your values and your core beliefs, your character, right? Self confidence is confidence built on your character, who you are as a person, how you act or react, those values that are most important to you, and that doesn't really change. Now, it can change over time, certainly as you grow, but self-confidence is only going to grow by growing and developing your character, and that can change over time, and hopefully when you're growing, it does change over time. But day to day, your self-confidence, confidence in your character isn't going to change dramatically from day to day because it's static, and those factors that make you uniquely you are contributing to that self-confidence. Situational confidence is certainty in the outcome of a situation, and that's enhanced by knowledge and skills and technical abilities. So situational confidence is dynamic and can be increased by increasing your competency and developing your competency, but you're not always going to have situational confidence. So here's the way that I explain this. I have a lot of situational confidence in doing things like recording podcasts or speaking on stage or something like that, writing a book. I have a lot of situational confidence in that. I've done it. I'm knowledgeable about it. I'm not an expert and I'm certainly still learning and still growing, but I am confident in those situations because I've done it. And that situational confidence is there when I'm in that situation. But if you take me and you put me in the operating room to perform heart surgery, I don't have any competence in that situation. And so I don't have any confidence in that situation. There's no situational confidence there. Now, my confidence in myself and who I am as a person is still the same as it is whether I'm speaking on stage or recording this podcast, but that's not going to change from situation to situation. There shouldn't be a variation there. My self-confidence goes with me everywhere I go. Situational confidence, however, put me in the operating room and say, perform heart surgery, and I would be completely clueless. It wouldn't work. I don't have any confidence or confidence in that situation. So you see the difference, right? Who I am as a person, true self confidence isn't going to change much from day to day, situation to situation. Who you are at work, who you are at home. Certainly, we find that our different environments influence us, but true self confidence and confidence in your values and your character shouldn't change much from day to day or from work to home. Hopefully, as you've grown and matured, you've realized that you should be the same person internally in the different situations where you show up in your life. Now, I think it's important anytime we're talking about confidence, it's important to remember that confidence has to be balanced with humility because confidence without humility isn't confidence, it's arrogance. Right? And so we absolutely should have self-confidence and that strength of character because it takes that self-confidence to develop that character. But the more confidence you have without arrogance, the greater success you can have and the greater influence you can have. But if you don't have a healthy sense of humility, then that confidence can very, very easily cross the line into arrogance. Confident leaders inspire trust, arrogant leaders destroy it, right? Arrogance destroys influence. So, number one, if you're wanting to develop more true self confidence in yourself, then you have to develop your character. Growing, reading, listening to podcasts, reflecting, writing, all of the things that help us grow as a person, that's going to help develop your self confidence. Number two, to develop your situational confidence, you have to work on your skills, your knowledge, and your talents, your abilities, your technical knowledge. And that also can increase over time with just experience, but you can certainly be very intentional about learning to develop different situational competencies. And that'll develop your self and situational confidence together. So, uh, but there again, it's important to realize, regardless of the environment that we're in, we have to be mindful of balancing that with humility, right? You have. I heard Warden Burl Cain once say, "You have to be humble so you don't stumble." And I so remember when I heard him say that. It was quite a few years ago. I want to say it was probably 2017. Mac and I do a lot of leadership development sessions for uh, prison fellowship, and they have a program called Warden Exchange, which is a leadership development program for wardens all across the United States and some internationally. At this point, it really has grown. But back in 2017, they asked if we could come, and they do a lot of virtual sessions and all, but they also do some in-person leadership development sessions a couple of times a year. And so Mac and I were privileged to go out to California, and it was, a couple of days for the session. And we speak at the session, and then of course there are other speakers and other presentations. And then day 2 of the conference, if you want to call it that, they actually go and they tour a prison in the area, one of the participants from the program usually. And so it was really just an interesting opportunity, because Mac and I went out to California, and it was north of San Francisco. So we flew into San Francisco, which at the time, I think that was our first time there for both of us. And so we got to do some sightseeing around the couple days we were there for the conference. It was really, just a neat opportunity. And part of it, we got to actually tour San Quentin prison, which was um, eye-opening, certainly. It's just sort of an eerie feeling when you walk into to tour a facility like that. And you walk in through the gates, and you obviously leave everything. You don't take anything with you, not a purse or a phone or anything like that. And then you walk in and, check in and go through security and all of that. And then you walk in and they close the gate behind you and you are in, and we're just out walking around, with trustees and with some of the people that worked there. But for the most part, we're sort of out in just the general, common areas of the prison. So it was an eye-opening experience, very impactful. But I remember, as part of the conference in one of the sessions, I think I had already gone and presented my session. And so then I sat down and, we watched some of the other sessions. And I remember Mac and I were sitting there, and when Warden Burl Cain got up to speak, and I didn't at the time know who he was, but he was the warden who was responsible for turning around Angola prison. And when he took on that task, when he started as warden there at Angola prison, it had the reputation of being the worst prison in the United States. I mean, inmates would consider it a death sentence to be sentenced there, because the environment was so bad. There was so much crime in the prison. Um, the environment was bad. The guards were not safe. There was no safe. Nobody was safe. It was just a terrible, terrible environment. It was really known as the worst prison in the United States. And Warden Burl Cain took that over, He started as the warden and really transformed the culture and turned the culture of the prison around. Now, it's still a prison, right? But he talked about what he did to transform the culture and the environment, to bring that from an unhealthy, toxic environment where nobody was safe to making that one of the more safer facilities. But he was talking about having humility, and he was sharing his story because they asked him there to, talk about the principles he did and his leadership and his role there. And he said, one of the first things he said, you know what, I didn't have a lot of humility. And that was, really holding me back as a leader. He said, you got to be humble so you don't stumble. And then he went on to share a story that just really impacted me. He shared the story of the first time that he had to carry out an execution. And, back then it was early in the time when he'd started, and it was a, terrible toxic environment, and they weren't treating people like people. And, he talks about the prison guards were betting on the time of death, and, you know, nobody wanted to, you know, comfort this person. And sure, certainly as a leader, his role, and a difficult role in carrying out an execution, is not pleasant at all. But he was talking about how you go about doing that. Are you treating that person like a person, even in those circumstances, or treating them like an object in those circumstances? And he shared, he's like, what, we really were treating him like an object. And he went on to describe the scene and carrying out the execution. And then he gets to the point of saying, what, I woke up the next morning and I thought, what have I done? He's like, I carried out that execution and I didn't even ask if that man knew Jesus. And he said, I had to come to grips with myself. He said, I didn't have a lot of humility. I had a lot of pride. I was young, didn't know what I didn't know about what I was doing. And he said, but that was a defining moment where I realized I needed to, number one, have some humility. And number two, I wanted to change how we were treating people in this environment. And he did, and he goes on, to share a lot of that in his book, and he shared a lot of it there at that day. But I tell you, talk about an impactful moment when someone like that is talking about a difficult, difficult role as a leader and how he had to balance humility in that role. And he said, you know what, the next time that I had to carry out an execution, he said, I went in and I had dinner with him the night before, just spending some time with him, get to know him, talk about faith if that's what he wants to do, and he said we treated him with respect the whole way through, and considering him as a person. He said, and when I had to carry out the execution, I sat there and held his hand because that's what he asked me to do. And at this point, sitting in the session, I almost wanted to cry because it just hit me of such a powerful example of leadership in a tough environment. But if someone like that in that environment is able to apply leadership principles and develop a good, healthy culture in that environment, these principles will work any environment, right? Any organization can take advantage of applying leadership principles and growing the culture and the character of their organization, and helping it become more healthy and less toxic and more pleasant to be there, and a place where everyone is respectful and treating people like people. So it was a powerful moment, and I've never forgotten that quote from Warden Kane. You've got to be humble so you don't stumble. Nicole Scherzinger noted, confidence comes with maturity and being more accepting of yourself. So one of the things you can do, number one, ask a mentor to help hold you accountable in developing yourself. Ask a trusted friend, someone that you know, to help you identify character issues or development opportunities. Little things can be big things with people, but we don't necessarily considering being late all the time a character flaw, but it's certainly an opportunity to develop our character. Because if we're late all the time, consistently, that's a lack of integrity, right? If I say I'm going to be there at 5 and I'm there at 5:15 or 5:30, that's not just I'm late. That's a lack of integrity. I didn't keep the commitment that I made to you. And so, just asking a trusted friend, somewhere that you can trust and ask them for open feedback on areas of development in your character. Lack of humility certainly is a development opportunity. Maybe not taking ownership of mistakes or making too much of your mistakes, but just ask, find a mentor, find someone who can help you with that, or develop a personal growth plan that will help you stay on track with that. And then last but not least, I wanted to just run down kind of a list, and I talk about this in more depth in the book, where I compare and contrast the characteristics of confidence in women, both confident women versus unconfident women. So I'm just going to share a few of these and just kind of compare and contrast. And of course, if you want the full list, you can find those in the book. But um, confident women aren't afraid to take risks. Unconfident women are afraid to take action. So if you find yourself afraid to take action, that shows a lack of confidence and that shows an opportunity to develop. Um, I'm just running down and picking out a few of these. Confident women aren't afraid of leading others, while unconfident women are always looking for someone else to lead them. So you may naturally have an inclination to be the one in the driver's seat and leading the way and taking charge. You may naturally have a back seat, desire to just ride and let somebody else take the reins. But I'm here to tell you, as you develop your character and your confidence, that can change over time because you'll become more confident as a leader. Confident women aren't afraid of being persistent, while unconfident women are too prone to giving up. It's very easy to dissuade somebody if they don't have a lack of confidence. Whereas if you have a lot of confidence and you know what you're doing is on the right path, you won't be afraid to be persistent, right? You will be the most persistent person out there. And last but not least, and I'll move on and we'll close this podcast episode. But confident women aren't afraid of empowering others, while unconfident women are afraid of giving away authority. And I think that's a telling one. If you're in a situation at work where maybe your boss doesn't delegate responsibility and authority to you, then that could be a sign that they don't have enough confidence in their ability or their leadership ability, or maybe it's a sign of insecurity because confident leaders and confident women aren't afraid to empower others and say, you know what, here, I want to delegate this task with you, but I'm not just going to delegate the responsibility of getting it done, but also the authority that you need to make a decision to carry out this task, right? I'm going to empower you, and not just with the need to get it done, but also empower you with the freedom to take action and make decisions and do what needs to be done. Now, there's certainly levels of delegation, and Mac talks about that a lot in some of his books. It might be worth digging into one of those podcast episodes on delegation. I think we're going to talk about that a little bit later in some of these leadership gem sessions. I touch on that as well. But delegation obviously has to be done appropriately and considerately and as a development opportunity. But if some leader is never delegating anything, if they're the kind of person that wants to do it all themselves because they know they can get it done right, then that shows a lack of security on their part as a leader and will never ever allow them to be the most effective at leadership. So confident women are not afraid to empower others. Until next time.